All right. Welcome to the Knicks Film School Postgame Show presented by BetUS. Tough night for the Knicks tonight. Lose at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves by a final score of, 116 to 99. I would say the final score was somewhat indicative of the actual gameplay, although it was obviously much closer than what was the final margin? 17 points for the vast majority of this. This was a pretty close game, certainly going into the fourth quarter. And this was, got scored by 14 in the fourth quarter. So obviously a 3-point game going into the fourth. Pretty easy game to diagnose. And I would just say at the outset, if there are people watching who are looking for ranting and raving and, red flares being shot into the sky and all kinds of other sorts of those things, you're not getting it from me tonight. This was Knicks have how many losses tonight? There are 16 losses now on the season. This, for me, was the easiest of the 16 to deal with. And I will explain the reasons why in a moment. But first, very quick shout out to everybody who showed up to T-Squared Social for our watch party tonight. Yet another very good turnout. Yet another showing where the energy was great and the enthusiasm was great. And the Knicks Film School curse is back. We thought we had eliminated it. Thought it was gone. It has returned with a vengeance. This is now 3 straight watch parties that we have a loss on. And if you throw in our outing to MSG, that makes it 4 straight L's for Knicks Film School. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going to get us off this schneid. We're taking next weekend off. We could use it. Next game is at T-Squared is against the Lakers on February 1st. So hopefully, I don't know what's going to happen between now and then, but hopefully something happens. But anyway, just wanted to start out by shouting at everybody who came to the watch party. Okay. This game. Obviously no Karl-Anthony Towns. And you could say, well, no Karl-Anthony Towns, sure. But they didn't have Dante DiVincenzo, who's been playing incredible for the Wolves, including coming off of his best game, which he was arguably their best player against the Warriors the other night. And also Julius Randle, you look at his final scoring or his final, point total, 8 points. You're like, well, you didn't get a great Randle game either. So what's the excuse? And I think that's a valid way to look at it, or I think it's a valid way to approach it. To me, what this game was a reminder of was a couple of things. Number one, there is no conversation, or at least no valid conversation, about this Knicks team as it is currently constituted. And I emphasize as it is currently constituted because Mitchell Robinson is not currently in uniform. And we have no idea what Mitch is going to look like when he comes back, but we'll take that one day at a time. But there is no conversation about whether the benefits that come with not having Karl-Anthony Towns in the lineup from a defensive perspective are maybe approach the positives that come when he is in the lineup. Because right now, there is a Hudson River-sized chasm between the Knicks when they have Karl-Anthony Towns and how good their offense can be when they have Karl-Anthony Towns versus when they don't have Karl-Anthony Towns. And can their defense do some things and can maybe shore up some occasional leakage when they that they can when Karl is or can they do those things when Karl's not in there versus when Karl's in there? Yeah, sure. You saw tonight that the trade-off is it's night and day. And for me, this game is defined by a couple of things, one of which is how tough a time the Knicks had scoring against this Minnesota team. And like, this was a 4-point game at the half. I think it was, like, frankly, not miraculous that it was a 4-point game at the half, but you got an insane stretch, the most insane stretch that the Knicks have had from any player this season, from Cameron Payne. Absolutely out of his mind. Great game from Cameron Payne. And overall, the team shot 50-something%, or actually, 60-something% from behind the arc, which is why it was as close as it was. And in the second half, I actually give the Knicks a ton of credit. I thought their third quarter on both sides of the ball, and I'm going to get to the defense in a bit, I thought their third quarter performance was outstanding because they went cold from three, and they actually cut into the lead. They actually shaved 1 point off the lead somehow, because I thought again, I'll get to some of the things that they did well. And then in the fourth quarter, it was just like the threes weren't there, and the Timberwolves went to their kind of peak defensive look in which they could switch everything, and the Knicks could do nothing with it. And that is because the Knicks had a traditional five, and Josh Hart, some nights he's feeling it, other nights he's not. Tonight wasn't really feeling it. Obviously, credit to Josh Hart for even coming back in that game after he had to go to the locker room, because I don't know if it was a shoulder, I don't know if it was head, when he banged up with Jericho Sims, who Jericho Sims, man, we'll talk about Jericho Sims. But Hart 1 of 5 from three tonight, and like in general as a team, the numbers don't really tell the story because in the first half they were automatic. But like, and they ended up shooting 41% from three, but they were not confident from three in the second half. And give credit to the Wolves because, again, going back to, and I should have started off with this. The Wolves were fantastic tonight. And I think it tells you all you need to know that John Krasinski, friend of the pod, John Krasinski, who covers the Wolves for The Athletic, tweeted out towards the end of the fourth quarter that this was Anthony Edwards' best game of the season. Anthony Edwards is going to make an All-NBA team this year. And so the fact that we are more than halfway into the year, and someone who covers this team full time and knows this team as well as anyone is coming out and telling you this was his best game of the season from a defensive standpoint, from a scoring standpoint, from a passing standpoint. And my God, did Anthony Edwards throw some dimes tonight. That tells you a lot. And defensively in the fourth quarter, the Wolves were everywhere. And you could do that when you are playing against an offense that has some limitations, which obviously the Knicks did tonight because they got either Jericho Sims or Precious Achiuwa in there. And there was just always a body there. And that's what happens when you are comfortable, when push comes to shove, switching everything, or if not switching everything, feeling confident that, you know what, I could stay home on my man here. And I don't like whatever shot they're going to get, I'm comfortable with it. And Jalen Brunson started this game off on fire, like getting everything he wanted. But notice that the Timberwolves defense never abandoned their general strategy, which is like, we're not going to compromise everything that we do because Jalen Brunson makes a few baskets. Sure enough, Jalen Brunson went a little cold. He finished with like whatever, a perfectly okay stat line, not one of his best stat lines of the year by far. But like couldn't really put enough pressure on the Wolves defense. It was not his night. And when you have only one advantage creator in your lineup because you don't have Karl-Anthony Towns there, and your best player is like being stifled just enough by what the opposing defense is going to do, well, you're going to find it hard to get good looks. And I thought the most symbolic possession of the game was when the Knicks had one last gasp of air. I think they had cut it to 10 points with about 2 and change, or maybe 3 and change, whatever it was, to go in the game. And they actually got a steal. And the Wolves were back immediately in transition. And the Knicks were like, oh, we got to get a good shot. And it was pass. I don't know how many times they passed on that possession. It was a bunch. I lost count. And every time they passed the ball, there was a Timberwolf there. And that's a testament to Minnesota. And it was best defense in the league last year. Started off very iffy this year. They've been much better of late defensively. And I think you saw that tonight. They had an outstanding defensive performance, in particular in the second half. So, yeah, that takes care of when the Knicks had the ball. Now, I said before that, like, it was kind of miraculous that the Knicks were in this game for as long as they were because their 3-point shot started falling by the wayside, and the Timberwolves obviously did not. One of the reasons I'm unbothered by this game, and I'm not going to kill the Knicks on this game, is because they did a lot of really nice things. Offensive rebounds, 15 for the Knicks, 11 for the Wolves. Turnovers. Knicks generated 16 turnovers. The Timberwolves only generated 9. So those are two areas that I always look to with this basketball team in terms of like, all right, are they crossing their T's and dotting their I's? Are they doing everything they can, or are they making unforced errors? Are they giving up offensive rebounds? Are they giving up turnovers? Or are they getting turnovers? Are they getting offensive rebounds? They checked both of those boxes tonight. And I think they did a really good job in terms of at least like hanging around, giving themselves second chance opportunities, giving themselves opportunities in transition. And, I said they got 16 turnovers off the Timberwolves. They scored 19 points off those 16 turnovers, which is not great. And again, that's a little bit of stuff they weren't able to do, and a little bit of credit to the Timberwolves for some really good transition defense. But at the end of the day, this game went the way it did because Anthony Edwards was absolutely unconscious. Jalen Brunson had for him what was a, I don't know, 40th percentile game. If that, maybe not even that. I mean, when Jalen Brunson needs 23 shots to get 26 points, that's well below what he's capable of, let alone it's well below his average, let alone what he's capable of. And Anthony Edwards, after starting off dreadfully, I think he started 1 of 8. I think he missed 2 shots the rest of the way. 1 shot the rest of the way. Yeah. No, 2 shots the rest of the way. Yeah, exactly. Finished 12 of 21, including 8 of 13 from deep, 36 points on 21 shots. He was, again, I talked about it. He was outstanding. Like, the shots that he was making from 3, I'm not about to kill any of the Knicks defenders who were in his area for those shots. A lot of it was Mikal Bridges. I thought Mikal Bridges did everything he could against Anthony Edwards. That is a guy who is like an MVP caliber player having as good a night as you're ever going to see him have, at least in that aspect. And he was very good in other aspects too. So tip your cap. The Naz Reid game that we got, where he was 6 of 6 from behind the arc. And I'm going to extend the Naz Reid game part of it to every single time the Wolves got a decent look from 3, with the exception of the 3 straight that they missed at the beginning of the fourth quarter, which, like, you thought the Knicks were going to be able to hang around. Other than those 3, they hit every good look that they had from deep. That, if there's anything that people want to get upset about tonight, I think that's what you get upset about tonight. Because why were those looks there? And why were, like, let me say this about the Knicks. I did not think the Knicks defended badly tonight. We've seen the Knicks defend badly. I did not feel like tonight I watched a poor defensive performance. I watched a defensive performance that was not as crisp or as clean or as sound as it could have been, and as it turns out, needed to be on a night when Anthony Edwards was on one. And they needed to be perfect defensively tonight. And they were not perfect. They were something below perfect. How below perfect were they? That's for, we could debate that. But I thought their early rotations for pretty much the entire evening were good. But, and then I started it off by talking about the Wolves defense and what they were able to do against a Knicks team that featured really only one serious threat in Jalen Brunson. And I'm going to contrast that now with the Knicks defense. And the Knicks defense, they do have a weak spot. And constantly, because of the game that Edwards was having, and because obviously the Knicks have weaker defenders in their lineup, not just Jalen Brunson, but like, Cameron Payne's small, like Deuce McBride small, they were constantly feeling the need to help. And when you help, you need to rotate. And I thought the Knicks, again, first rotation, second rotation, maybe sometimes even third rotation, I thought that stuff was good. And by the way, the more you get teams into, like, if it's the second, third, fourth pass, that's how you generate turnovers. The more times you force teams to pass, which is why I think they did a good job to generate those 16 turnovers. They did not turn those 16 turnovers into enough points. But again, give the Wolves credit, because a lot of times when they didn't turn it over, they kept passing, and then it turned into an open three, and they made seemingly all of them. The Naz Reid, if I'm really annoyed at one thing tonight, I think when he really got going in the first half, I thought they did not pay nearly enough attention to him. They allowed him to get him rhythm. There was one in the first half that was like a 30-footer where they played off of him. I'm not going to kill him for that one, but on 2 or 3 of those other threes, man, there was someone there, and they were not honoring that dude's ability to put the ball in the basket from like all over the court. They were not honoring that ability nearly enough. That annoyed me. Other than that, I can't kill him for anything that I saw tonight. The drop off from Towns to Sims and Precious, and I know Sims did a couple of nice things tonight. Precious did a couple of nice things tonight. Those guys are so lacking in terms of, against a defense like this. Let me just take a step back. Let's put it in perspective. This is a top, the way they were playing tonight, they were a top 5 defense, and that's what they're capable of. They should be a top 5 defense. I don't know what their actual ranking is right now. It might actually be close to top 5 because they've been so good of late. But like, against a really good defense, the drop off from Cat to what the Knicks have on the roster is just so freaking severe. It's so severe, and it was so stark tonight, and you needed Towns in there to put the pressure on a defense being able to do what the Wolves were able to do. Wolves are up to 7th in defense, and they're 0.2 points per 100 possessions behind the 5th place Boston Celtics. So essentially the Wolves are a top 5 defense, and you saw it tonight. So that's the difference. Knicks couldn't do enough on offense, partially because of personnel, and obviously partially because of who they were playing. And on defense, weren't able to stand up to that Wolves attack, given how the Wolves were hitting shots, and given that their best player was just on another planet tonight. So, like, for me, not a bothersome loss. Not one that I'm raising any red flags about. I think you could, look at a couple things tonight and be encouraged. I thought OG looked as good as he has in a while. Obviously nice to see OG hit some threes. He hit 3 of 5 from behind the arc. That's a great sign. Like that he may be coming out of his slump. I thought that was incredibly encouraging. Cameron Payne obviously had an awesome game. Kudos to him. And again, defense. This may be where I'm in the minority. I'm sure people are going to rant and rave about the defense tonight. I thought they did some really nice things on defense. I thought their initial coverages and like screen navigation and some early rotations. Like I saw a lot of defensive possessions tonight that left me feeling very, very good as a Knicks fan. But story of the season, can you do that over 48 minutes? Let alone the course of a couple games. And tonight, like, again, they needed to be perfect defensively, and they weren't perfect defensively. They were whatever percentage of perfection you want to give. That's my assessment. I actually talked about this for a hell of a lot longer than I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to leave myself a little bit more time to do a little spiel on Randall. But given that I've already talked for 20 minutes and I want to get to the super chats, I will just say this, and Mark, I'm going to make this my autograph signature moment of the game. Autograph signature moment of the game was the round of applause that the Knicks fans at MSG gave for Julius Randle at the start of this one. I didn't anticipate anything other than a hearty round of applause for Julius Randle, but you never know. I wrote a little bit about Julius today, wrote about him a few months ago as well. Check out the Knicks Film School newsletter if you want to see my thoughts. But he is one of the more unique players to come through this franchise in a very long time and maybe ever. Wasn't here long enough to compile some of the statistics that, you might see in terms of an Allen Houston or, obviously guys who were here during the championship years, like Patrick, obviously, even Melo was here for longer than him. So he doesn't have the counting stats to be like top 10 in a whole lot of categories. But if you look at his averages, I think his average, I wrote it today. I forget already what it was. Something like 22, 23 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. Like nobody in Knicks history has ever had his averages over the course of their entire Knicks career. He is the only one. And then if you look at since the championship years, since Frazier and Reed and, those guys, the only Knick to make more All-NBA teams than Julius Randle was Patrick Ewing. Randle made 2. Bernard King made 2. Carmelo Anthony made 2. Jalen Brunson will make his second this year. You got some guys that made 1. But that, no one has a better resume. And then you look at the part, okay, well, did it lead to winning? Listen, there's been a lot of guys that have come through this organization that have put up a lot of stats that have not done shit. Yeah, we know Julius does not necessarily have his signature playoff performances, but been here for 5 years, made the playoffs 3 of those years. And that matters a lot to me.